Welcome back to the Campus Pressbox podcast series. I'm Ben Belton, and I'm here with Danny Cunningham. We are two writers, two Notre Dame columnists for Campus Pressbox here, and we're going to talk a lot today about the Fiesta Bowl matchup between Notre Dame and Ohio State on New Year's Day. Danny, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, and I'm just dealing with the question of why the Fiesta Bowl isn't sponsored by Tostitos anymore.
I was really alarmed whenever I saw there was the Battlefrog Fiesta Bowl. Do we know what Battlefrog is?
I think it's like an obstacle course company, but there was no better marriage in sports marketing than Tostitos and Fiesta Bowl. That was as good as it gets.
Yeah, those marketing departments really put something together there. That Tostito, and like you say, Tostitos Fiesta Bowl just has quite a ring to it. Obviously, the fact that, corn chips and Fiesta kind of go together, but whatever. We're stuck with Battlefrog, and I'm as disappointed as you are. So you'll be at the game. I saw you.
I will be. I purchased 6 tickets because this day has the potential to be the greatest day of my life, Ben. If things go according to plan and I am surrounded by sad Buckeye fans, I can't think of a greater thing in the world.
And then you're going to get to come back to Ohio a few days afterwards, still be around a bunch of sad Buckeye fans.
I'll get to go to work with sad Buckeye fans. And Ben, I already have tweets that are just trashing Notre Dame from Ohio State fans I have them screenshotted. And assuming Notre Dame wins, I have a tweet just ready to be sent as soon as the final whistle blows.
I love it. You may have seen, you did see on Twitter how I said that if Ohio State wins, I am going to be stuck with an Ohio State logo as my Twitter AV until the January 11th championship game. But I've got probably 10, 12 Buckeye fans that will be sporting a Notre Dame logo when Notre Dame wins also. And as well as one of the people that I teach with will be wearing blue and gold on the first day back from school after that bowl game if Notre Dame wins. So a lot riding on this for people that aren't really involved in the football game. But
yeah, you're right. And this, weirdly enough, because the teams don't play often, I think there are 6 all-time matchups or something like that. This is a rivalry. And now I know Notre Dame is rivals with everybody because that's truly how it is. You could look up and down the schedule, and Notre Dame's whoever the opponents, it's their biggest game. Like Boston College was saying, Notre Dame's our biggest rival. And to Notre Dame, Boston College is kind of just another team. But that's kind of how this is. I'm not saying for Ohio State that this is Michigan, but this is up there for them. And I know this is certainly up there on my list as a Notre Dame fan of teams I would love to see nothing more than Notre Dame beat. There's USC that I would love to see Notre Dame beat every year, and I would love nothing more than to see Deshaun Kaiser and CJ Prosise and Will Fuller just crush some Buckeyes.
Yeah, you touched on it a little bit. Obviously, there's a pretty decent proximity between the two teams. Probably 4.5 hours between Columbus and South Bend, I would say.
I think that'd be about correct.
So pretty good proximity there. Obviously, there's plenty of Notre Dame fans in Ohio. And as far as the two schools are concerned, as far as their football programs are concerned, kind of competing for the same pool of players, pretty national fan base. Notre Dame's definitely a national fan base, and you'd be surprised where you go and you find Ohio State fans. They're everywhere.
I mean, that's what happens when your school has 60,000 people in it.
That's very, very true.
It's more impressive for a school like Notre Dame that has 12,000 kids as opposed to Ohio State having 65,000+.
Right. I was sitting in a Nashville airport last year on January 2nd, and there were all kinds of Ohio State fans coming back from the Sugar Bowl, and I was seeing where they were sitting and where they were flying to and things, and they're flying to Cleveland, they're flying to all kinds of places from that Nashville airport. So once again, obviously, like we say, two very national fan bases. Lots of similarities between Ohio State as far as fan bases are concerned, and similarities with Ohio State and Notre Dame as far as fan bases are concerned, and as far as on the football field also. For instance, you and I have talked about this a good bit already about how the quarterback situation for Ohio State was a lot similar to what Notre Dame ended up dealing with this year, with Deshaun Kaiser being essentially the third stringer going into, well, not essentially the third stringer. He was the third string quarterback going into spring practice. And then obviously that parallels Ohio State and Cardale Jones and JT Barrett and all that. JT Barrett and Malik Zaire kind of had the same injury, albeit at different times. I've talked about how CJ Prosise kind of fits what that H-back type of the Braxton Miller position, the Percy Harvin position that Ohio State has. CJ Prosise would really fit in that because he's kind of that wide receiver running back hybrid. Lots and lots of interesting storylines going on with Notre Dame and Ohio State, and I don't know that we can touch on all of it in one podcast, but we'll certainly try.
I don't know. Damien might get upset if we try and touch on all of that. We could be here for 2 hours like we normally are.
Yeah, that's true. So for the sake of our listeners, we'll try to keep this short and concise. But I don't know. So obviously, I texted you before the selection committee, or whatever they call it, the football committee. College football playoff committee, if I want to give it a proper name. I texted you just dying for this matchup. And I feel like a lot of fans for both fan bases kind of felt the same way. Obviously, Ohio State probably wanted to go to the Rose Bowl for a team in the Big Ten. That's, if you're not in the playoff scenario, that's probably where you want to go as your consolation prize. But I can't imagine too many Ohio State fans are really upset with having to play Notre Dame. And obviously us Notre Dame fans are feeling the same way because you and I deal with it on almost a daily basis. I often tell people that the reason that I don't like Ohio State, I obviously like Notre Dame. The reason I really don't like Ohio State is because since, I was old enough to like football and root for Notre Dame, Ohio State fans have been bashing me for it.
Yep.
So I don't really have any vendetta against Ohio State University. I just have a vendetta against, I guess, annoying, obnoxious fans.
Yeah. I think the answer when people ask, why don't you like Ohio State? The answer just, for me at least, kind of sometimes is, I don't like Ohio State because you like Ohio State and I can't stand you because I feel that way about a lot of teams, honestly. Like I actually have been thinking personally, and I have this in my Twitter bio, I hate everybody. Like if you're not a team that I like, I hate it. Like I hate you. And there's not necessarily a rhyme or reason to it, but I do, and it's true. And I'm thinking about doing a podcast that just is titled I Hate Everybody. And it doesn't stop at Ohio State. Like I hate the Orlando Magic. I hate everybody. So thinking about doing that, but Ohio State's definitely at the top of that list as far as hate goes. And it can be pushed back to the fact that I live right in the middle of Buckeye country, unfortunately. And I can't stand the fact that they are so proud about being grammatically correct and calling it the Ohio State. Like that's my biggest pet peeve because no one else goes, oh, the University of Notre Dame or the Oregon State University. No one does that because no one else needs to.
We're digressing just a little bit already, but obviously I went to the University of Dayton, and a couple of years back, Dayton and Ohio State were matched up.
God. I know where you're going with this, and it was my favorite thing of that entire year was what you're about to say.
Yes. So for our listeners, whenever they were matched up in the first round of the NCAA basketball playoffs, and I think Dayton was the 11, Ohio State might have been the 6. It was Aaron Craft's final game as a Buckeye, and Aaron Craft missed that nice little floater in the lane right there at the end. And then next morning, Dayton Daily News, capital THE, the University of Dayton. And yeah, I have that screenshotted on my phone. I have a copy somewhere laying around because I, of course, went and picked up the Dayton Daily News that day. So yeah, that was a proud, I don't know, moment for me, feeling better than Ohio State fans were. But and obviously, if Notre Dame can pull it out, I'll have another similar type moment. But so we've talked a lot about our fandom a little bit. Let's get down to some actual football. Both teams, high-powered type teams, when they are, when they're clicking on offense, lots of similarities on the football field. Let's talk about some skill players and some matchups that we're going to see that are intriguing. First of all, starting with the receiving core, we've got Will Fuller for Notre Dame, and we've got Michael Thomas for Ohio State. I think both of those guys are potentially primed for big games. Ohio State's passing attack has not been what it was in previous years, mainly because I don't think Michael Thomas is as good as Devin Smith.
Couldn't agree more. I think that Ohio State wants Michael Thomas to be a number one receiver, but in all reality, he's a very good number two receiver. And I think that's Ohio State's biggest problem with their passing attack is they lack that true number one receiver that Devin Smith was. On the flip side, I do think Will Fuller is a true number one receiver, and he's shown that throughout the year and last year as well with Notre Dame. But Michael Thomas is a very, very good number two wide receiver, but he's just not quite a number one wide receiver.
I agree. And what I will say, however, is that Notre Dame was pretty depleted in the secondary. So if there was a time when I had to think that Urban Meyer was going to try to force feed Michael Thomas the ball in the passing game a little bit, it might be this Notre Dame Ohio State Fiesta Bowl, where Notre Dame will be without Kavari Russell. A couple other secondary guys have been injured throughout the year. I lose track of who's out and who's back and all that because Notre Dame's had so many injuries. But I don't know. How do you think Urban Meyer is going to approach this game for Ohio State? Do you think he's going to pound it a lot? I do think we're going to see Ohio State try and air it out a little bit. I think that part of the reason is because Notre Dame, the secondary has been the weak spot of the team for most of the year, and they have had injuries, and especially now with Kavari Russell out and all of that, I think that's an area where Ohio State can attack. Part of me does think that they're going to try and just pound the ball with Ezekiel Elliott because they feel as if they were shut out because he wasn't invited to the Heisman ceremony that, quite frankly, he didn't deserve to be at. But because he wears scarlet and gray, it's his birthright to win the Heisman and go to the playoff and do all that. But I think that they're going to try and air it out. But I think I really think that Ezekiel Elliott is going to get a lot of carries because I don't think JT Barrett is as good of a passer as people think. So I don't think they'll be as successful airing the ball out as people think. And at that point, they'll turn to the run game. Digressing a little bit, how does Ezekiel Elliott say what he says after the Michigan State game and Urban Meyer just acts like it's all hunky-dory and then goes ahead and feeds him the ball 8 million times against Michigan?
Have you seen Urban Meyer's track record of guys that he's coached that are like not good people? Because it's extensive. And not to say Ezekiel Elliott's a bad person, but Urban Meyer doesn't like deal with guys that are not good people and act out. I mean, JT Barrett got a DUI and got a 1-game suspension. Okay, that's warranted. And I was quite honestly a little surprised Urban Meyer did that. I'm even more surprised Urban Meyer suspended Adolphus Washington for solicitation. I'm shocked at that. If you remember Janoris Jenkins, whoever that played for Florida, got arrested right after Urban Meyer stepped out. He said, yeah, if Coach Meyer was still here, I'd still be on the team because he knows what it takes to win. And I'm like, whoa, come on. Like, I know Urban Meyer doesn't do anything disciplinary-wise, but man.
He being Ezekiel Elliott, he really just, my gosh, he just It really seemed to me, listening to his comments, that he was taking Urban Meyer and just stomping on him during that post-game interview.
If anyone in America does that to their boss, they're fired. Ezekiel Elliott does it at Ohio State. Now he gets the keys to the offense. If I go to work and say everything that's wrong with where I work at, I would get fired. I wouldn't get handed the keys and be like, here, you're now the vice president of the place. Like, that's exactly what happened. That doesn't happen anywhere else in America. Do you think if CJ Process would have done that at Notre Dame, he would be getting more carries? You think Brian Kelly would have let that fly?
No.
I don't think so.
Not even for a second.
But because he wears scarlet and gray, it's okay.
I can't think of a football player or any type of any athlete that has ever said in a post-game interview, our coaches did not put us in the best opportunities and positions to win. I can't think of a person who said that. I'm sure many have thought it. And, you and I are Cleveland Cavaliers fans, and probably LeBron James has thought it at times.
We went through the Mike Brown era twice.
But never did LeBron James come out and just blatantly say, we weren't in the best position to win because of the coaches. It was dumbfounding to me, and I cannot believe that Ezekiel Elliott came out. I don't know how many times he touched the ball against Michigan, but he touched it a lot more than he did in weeks prior. He should have been touching the ball a lot more, but just the fact that the way that he said it was just astounding.
Okay, and let's say, yeah, he didn't get a ton of carries against Michigan State, but the carries he did have, he averaged 2.75 yards a carry. So it's not like you're out there breaking 25-yard runs and then being upset because you don't get the ball. If you do that, you have a gripe with me. But your long run of the day was 7 and you finished with 33 yards and you're complaining. Come on, man.
Oh, gosh.
And that's his biggest moment of the year, and then people are up in arms that he wasn't invited to New York for the Heisman ceremony. Sorry, bro. You were the 4th best running back in college football. You're not getting on that stage.
I really hope, and I think that this is going to be interesting to watch. I really hope that Jalen Smith just plants him a couple of times.
Oh.
I don't know. So you and I talked about this before we went on air a little bit, and you just kind of touched on it a little bit, alluding to Elliott is the 4th best running back in college football. I tend to agree. I think he's 3 or 4 or so. We were kind of talking about how it's really hard to judge college running backs because they're either faster or stronger than everyone they play against, it seems like. I think that a lot of Ezekiel Elliott's runs, a lot of his stats are inflated by the fact that he hits a hole. He's past the linebackers in, before you can blink, and then he just outruns people. And I mean, obviously that's a testament to Ezekiel Elliott's speed. I'm not saying the guy's a scrub, because I know that when people listen to this, that's what they're going to think I'm saying. But as far as running back skills, like, I don't see Ezekiel Elliott flat out make people miss all that often. So I think that Jalen Smith is unlike any defensive player that the Buckeyes have had to deal with this year. The guy is literally has like cornerback type speed in a linebacker's body.
I mean, he was the best linebacker in the country. There's no other way of putting it. He's first team All-American on every All-American list. He won the Butkus Award. He is the best linebacker in the country. There's no doubt Ezekiel Elliott hasn't gone up against anyone of his caliber, because, quite frankly, there's not another linebacker of his caliber in the country. And that's been proven by all these awards lists, the Butkus Award, being All-American on first team on every list. There's no one else like him in the country at the linebacker position.
For sure. Let's transition a little bit. Let's talk about Adolphus Washington. You touched on this a little bit. Just a couple days ago, we found out that Adolphus Washington was cited and charged with a misdemeanor of solicitation. Give me your thoughts on Adolphus Washington.
You play football at Ohio State University. Oh, excuse me. You play football at the Ohio State University, and you have to go out and try and pay for it? Come on, man. You are a first round NFL pick. You're good. And you have to go and try and pay for a lady to be friends with you for an hour. There are over 35,000 women on that campus. And you can't just you can't get it for free from anybody? Come on. How does that happen? I'm seriously dumbfounded that would happen. There are regular dudes on that campus that don't have to do that. And you are one of the best players on one of the best football teams in the country, and you have to go try and pay for a woman. Oh my God.
And as you said, I can't say I disagree with you. As you said then, a little surprised that Urban Meyer is holding him out of the Fiesta Bowl.
Shocked. Absolutely shocked. I thought that he was going to get suspended for half. And the reason I thought that was because Urban kind of set a little bit of a precedent when he suspended JT Barrett. And in my opinion, there's absolutely no comparison between getting a DUI and soliciting a prostitute. That's getting a DUI, you're endangering just about everyone else in the world. Soliciting a prostitute, you're endangering yourself maybe. And I thought that if you're going to suspend JT Barrett one game, that's fine. That sets a low precedent. And to compare these two, there's really no comparison. I mean, Adolphus Washington, what he did obviously broke the law, but I don't think it deserves a game, especially not by Urban Meyer's standards. I thought we were going to see him get suspended for the first half, especially considering this would have been his last game as a Buckeye. But I'm surprised that Urban suspended him for the full game. What about you?
I believe they're both misdemeanor offenses, correct?
Either way, you have to look at it as, okay, driving drunk is something serious that needs to be taken seriously.
I agree with you.
Soliciting a prostitute is legal in some places in the country. Driving drunk's not legal anywhere.
Okay. All right. That's fair. I don't know. Whenever I first heard the news, I was kind of like, well, it's only a misdemeanor. So that probably means, if Adolphus Washington went to Notre Dame, he'd probably be kicked off the team right now. There would be no more Adolphus Washington, even talked about. But so yeah, I'm a little surprised, but at the same time, I'm not, because it's just, I think that whatever decision would have been made, I wouldn't have been surprised by it, just because, like you say, Adolphus Washington is at the very least the second best player on that defense. It's his last game at Ohio State. And like you said, Urban Meyer's been lenient. But I think that one game is perfect. I feel bad for Adolphus Washington, even as a Notre Dame fan. Missing your last game, getting all hyped up to play in your last college football game and then not getting to play in it. I'm sure hurts, but yeah, I'm not too surprised that he got a full game, I guess. But
I don't necessarily feel bad for him, but you play football there. You have basically anything you want in the world for free. And whether that's tattoos or food or anything like this, why would you go try and pay for this?
Oh my God. And the timing,
couldn't be better.
Yeah. So Adolphus Washington obviously is going to be missed on the field for the Buckeyes. I think that Adolphus Washington is people talk about Joey Bosa and Darren Lee, and they're flashier players than Adolphus Washington is probably. I don't think Ohio State could be missing a more integral part of their defense than they are with Adolphus Washington. I've been on Twitter and I've talked to a couple of, non-crazy Ohio State fans on Twitter who agree with this.
No, those don't exist.
That have agreed with me when I said that Adolphus Washington is more valuable and probably a higher NFL draft pick than Joey Bosa is. I think that without Adolphus Washington in there, Notre Dame is going to have a really good chance to run the ball with a lot of success against Ohio State. because frankly, I don't think Joey Bosa is that good against the run.
I was going to say that obviously I don't think there's any doubt he's one of the best pass rushers in the country, but against the run, Joey Bosa isn't as good as people think. People think because he's a tremendous edge rusher that he's just phenomenal at all aspects of playing defensive end. And he's good, don't get me wrong, but he's not nearly the run stopper that people accuse him of being.
I got hammered on Twitter.
I saw this. I saw this during the Ohio State Michigan game, was it?
Yes. And some games I watch and I just watch to be as an ignorant football fan. Other games I watched and I watch specific players and I watch it as if I was watching film on a player. I watched when Michigan had the football. I watched Ohio State. I watched Joey Bosa really. There were 2 or 3 plays on one drive where, in fact, one of them was a wildcat formation where Michigan just got the ball and they ran the ball right inside Joey Bosa for 7-8 yards. And then a couple plays later, handoff, Joey Bosa's side, 7-8 yards. And I tweeted, am I the only one that doesn't think that Joey Bosa is that good? And then my mentions were blown. I was like, oh no. Here we go. Here comes the hate. And then I had to kind of temper it a little bit. I'm like, okay, when I said not that good, I meant I don't know, mid first round talent to talking picks 7 through 12 rather than 1 through 6. And people were like, well, that's not what you said. I'm like, I actually didn't really say anything. I just said he wasn't that good.
And then people come out, oh, he gets double teamed every play. No, he doesn't.
Not in the run. Adolphus Washington gets double teamed in the run.
Yeah, he doesn't get double teamed against the run, guys. And you can hide that he gets double teamed against the pass, which he does. And again, he's a phenomenal edge rusher.
Absolute freak.
But he's not as good against the run as people think he is. I think Notre Dame is going to be able to impose their will almost, if you will, running the ball without Adolphus Washington because Ohio State's going to be thin up front and he's their guy against the run. There's no two ways about it. And I think Notre Dame's going to be able to have their way running the ball with a healthy CJ Prosise and Josh Adams as well.
And I'll tell you what, if Notre Dame can run the football, which we're both saying that we think they'll be able to, if they can run the football against Ohio State, that's going to take away some of the effectiveness of Joey Bosa. Because if you can run the football, then obviously Joey Bosa is not going to be able to pin his ears back and just come at Deshaun Kaiser. Likewise, on the other side of the football, Ohio State's offensive line, and you and I have talked about this all the way back to the Virginia Tech game. There were times during that Virginia Tech game that Ohio State was losing the battle in the trenches, at least when they had the football, to Virginia Tech, who was not really that good. And I know Ohio State fans don't like to hear that their team may not be the most superior at all 11 positions on the field. But the truth of the matter is that I think Ohio State ran for just over maybe 150 yards that game. And I think Ezekiel Elliott got 80 of it on one play.
Yeah, Ezekiel Elliott had an 80-yard run that game. He finished with 122 on 11 carries. I don't know what the team total was, but I do have Zeke's game-by-game stats up right now.
Okay, there you go. So, I mean, obviously the other however many carries were outside of those 80 that Zeke had on one. Say the rest of the team carried the ball 15 times, and they had 150, which I am venturing to say that's about what their total was. That's only I don't know. That's only 25 carries for 70 yards or something like that, which really isn't good. So, and we saw what Michigan State was able to do against Ohio State as far as controlling the running game. Now, obviously, Ohio State did break out the running game against Michigan. We won't, fail to mention that. But looking at a full body of work this year, Ohio State hasn't run the ball real consistently. And I think it's going to be even more difficult for them to run against Notre Dame, especially when Notre Dame gets Jerron Jones back, who was hurt early in the season with a torn MCL in preseason practice, with Jalen Smith, with Isaac Rochelle, with all of those guys that they have up front. I think that you're looking at the best, maybe the second best front seven that Ohio State's going to have to play this year. And that's really going to hurt them. We talked about how Notre Dame's thin in the secondary, but if you can stop the run and you get them into pass situations, then you get guys rushing the passer a little bit, and you can cover up that secondary that's a little bit thin with injuries to Kavari Russell and things like that.
Yeah, I would agree with you there. And I don't know if Notre Dame's front seven is the best. I think that would go to Michigan State's as far as who Ohio State has played, but I definitely think it's the second best. I don't think that there's been another front seven quite as good. Michigan's front seven is extremely tough, but they're very slow. And that's the thing. And going back to what we said earlier, they haven't played a team with a linebacker like Jalen Smith because there's not one that exists. And getting back to the Joey Bosa argument real quick, he was actually only second team All-American. So according to the AP, there were actually two defensive ends better than him in the country. So I guess Shaq Lawson and Carl Nassab from Penn State were not as good as Joey Bosa, according to Ohio State fans, but better than him, according to everyone else.
Yeah. I think Joey Bosa is a little bit of a one-trick pony, to be quite honest with you. But, I mean, and again, Ohio State fans, not saying Joey Bosa is some scrub, just saying that he's not, God's gift to earth. That's all we're saying here. And there are ways that you can minimize his effectiveness without tailoring your whole offensive game plan toward him. He's not quite J.J. Watt.
No, he's not. And if you compare him to anything less than J.J. Watt, you'll be crucified in Ohio State territory. So,
yeah, exactly. So a couple Notre Dame storylines that we want to touch on real quickly before we get towards wrapping this up. Malik Zaire has, in Fiesta Bowl preparation, started playing a little bit of 7-on-7, doing the 7-on-7 drills in practice. And Brian Kelly was quoted as being very pleased and very surprised at how fast he was able to come back from that injury to this point. Obviously, he's not all the way recovered yet. What do you think that means for Notre Dame's quarterback future? We've talked about this a couple of different times, but how does that make you feel hearing that?
I think it's great that Zaire is recovering quickly, and all signs point to him being able to make a 100% complete recovery by the time spring ball happens, which would be great for Notre Dame because that really opens up the three-way competition between him, Kaiser, and Brandon Wimbush. But I don't know how much it means right now. I think that the staff is completely focused on trying to beat Ohio State, as are a good majority of the players. And as far as I'm concerned, it's great for Malik Zaire to be able to get reps right now, and it's fantastic. He has these practices to do so. But at the current moment, I don't think it means too much.
Yeah, I think it clearly is it's a Malik Zaire looking out for himself. I think if, Kaiser had been struggling at this point, and Notre Dame was sitting at, had lost more than 2 games under Kaiser, was sitting at like a 8-4 or something like that. Maybe Kaiser doesn't hurry back quite as quickly. Zaire doesn't hurry back quite as quickly. I also think it does a little bit for the team just to see that, this kid had a pretty gruesome looking injury. Here we are only, 2 months later, and probably closer to 3. Here we are 3 months later, and he's still obviously invested. He cares about this team. I think it's a nice little shot in the arm for the team to see Zaire out there. And obviously it's a great problem to have going forward. Just to clarify, I don't think I mentioned this initially. Zaire is out for the Fiesta Bowl, that he will not be playing in the Fiesta Bowl, but just the fact that he's able to practice a little bit and things like that might serve as a little bit of a shot in the arm. The way that Ohio State talked about how JT Barrett continued to be a leader in the locker room after he had that ankle injury against Michigan, and how he's always kind of been the vocal fire-up guy. I think Zaire practicing could have that effect for the Irish. Zaire's a great kid. Glad to see he's doing well in his recovery. So yeah, that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, and I'm torn as far as what I even want to happen next year. I think I would be very surprised if Kaiser's not the starter because of how well he's played this year. But in the same breath, Malik Zaire was the starter for a reason ahead of Deshaun Kaiser. And that really makes me question it, because if he wasn't, and if say there was someone that was a senior and Kaiser came in, there would be obviously no question that he would be the starter moving forward. But because Malik Zaire was ahead of him for a reason, there's always a reason a guy is a number one and another guy's a number two. That makes me question who's going to be the starter next year. I really think it's going to be Kaiser, but I think that door for Zaire is still open.
Yeah, I saw people, Notre Dame fans, who, maybe had their crazy Notre Dame hats on a little bit, but saying how Zaire's going to be a Heisman candidate next year and this, that, and everything else. I'm like, whoa, hold on. He's got to be the starter on his team first. Like, have you watched Notre Dame football at all this year? No, man. Didn't
you know, like, teams can have 3 Heisman caliber candidate quarterbacks? I mean, come on. And then a Heisman running back. Can't they give out 4 Heismans in a year, like, all on the same team?
Oh, God.
You can do that, right? Because I think that's what everyone in Ohio expected in the month of August. That just all 3 quarterbacks were going to win the Heisman, and Zeke was going to get one too.
Your team can win multiple Heismans if they wear some sort of shade of red. That's what I'll say. Talking about crazy Alabama fans, in case you didn't pick up on that. But anyways.
Yeah, totally got that.
My bad. That joke kind of fell flat. But
Alabama actually only has 2 Heisman winners now. Mark Ingram was their only Heisman winner, I do believe, until Derrick Henry won it on Saturday.
That kind of surprises me. For as much as Alabama is built up, for them to only have 2 Heisman winners is kind of just surprising. But
well, I mean, there's 20 Heisman winners between Notre Dame, Ohio State, and USC.
Yeah,
and then the rest of the country kind of doesn't have nearly as many, obviously.
Right. Well, let's go ahead and do some predictions. You can give me your score. Give me any game predictions that you have. Go ahead.
All right. I'm going to go Notre Dame 42, Ohio State 31. Ezekiel Elliott upset because he doesn't get the ball a ton, because Ohio State is going to be able to pass the ball. I think Will Fuller has over 150 yards and then announces after the game he's going to return for his senior season. And I think CJ Prosise is going to have over 150 yards rushing as well. And I think Josh Adams has over 75 yards rushing.
So you're going with a shootout.
Yeah, I think there's going to be a lot of points, a lot of people watching on TV, and a lot of NFL scouts in the building.
Yeah. Before I give mine, just think about all of the first round talent that's going to be on the field at the same time. Now, we haven't even talked about Notre Dame's Ronnie Stanley, who's probably one of the best offensive tackles in the draft. I think he was second team All-American. So obviously,
I think on almost everyone's mock draft right now, Notre Dame has 2 guys going in the top 10 and Ohio State has 1. So there's, according to most quote unquote experts, there's 3 top 10 players going to be on the field in this game between Ronnie Stanley, Jalen Smith, and Joey Bosa.
Yeah. And then Adolphus Washington would have probably been at the very least, top 20, you would think.
Yeah, first round pick. I don't know what this is going to do to his draft status.
I doubt it'll do much, but
yeah, I can't imagine it would do a ton. I have to think he gets comparisons to Warren Sapp all the time, and this only strengthens that. But
yeah,
but he's going to be a first round pick, and if Will Fuller does go out, I would have to think he'd land somewhere between 20 and 30.
Yeah, I don't know. My thoughts on Fuller, as far as obviously he's elite when it comes to being a deep threat. You and I both have talked about how he needs to catch that 15, 17-yard ball over the middle a little better to be a really, truly elite receiver. I think he does come back. It was reported at one point that he was coming back, but since that was reported, he's asked for his, his draft I don't even know what you call it, his draft grade or whatever.
Yeah, his recommendation from the NFL Draft Advisory Committee, I believe, is the technical name for it. But yeah, I think he has some things he needs to work on as far as maybe some route running from the slot and his intermediate pass catching game.
Right. So it would be very nice for Notre Dame fans if he would come back. But yeah, so on to my predictions. I'm going to go with a little bit less of a shootout than you. I'm going to go with 31-24 Notre Dame. I think that being a Notre Dame fan and knowing Notre Dame's track record in big games and how they start, I think we'll see Notre Dame with a little bit of a slow start, maybe hit Will Fuller for a big one on the first drive, but kind of go flat a little bit after that. They've done that multiple times this season. And when you have, you give Ohio State 2 weeks to prepare for you, I think there's going to be a feeling out process that might prevent a score into the 40s. So 34-21, I think Will Fuller will have a big day. And that I think Notre Dame is going to maybe even trail at halftime and come out and dominate the second half on their way to a victory. I think another guy that might have a big game is Chris Brown.
I would like to see him have a big game in his last game for Notre Dame. I would like to see him have a very good game.
Right. And whenever Notre Dame's struggling, it seems like they go on offense. They seem to go to guys like Chris Brown and Amir Carlisle and hit them on some crossing routes. And I think back to like Clemson. What got Notre Dame back into like the Clemson game was hitting Chris Brown on crossing routes and letting him run. I think that's kind of their fallback option when Fuller isn't able to get open deep, or they've devoted too many defensive backs to Fuller. So I think that Chris Brown will have himself a day. I think that CJ Prosise will have a nice game. I don't know if I'll say 150 yards rushing or not. Maybe around I think he's going to get the ball plenty of times, be around 100 yards. No, I got Notre Dame winning by a score, and Ohio State being really sad. So, which is always good.
And me being very, very, very happy.
And you being very, very happy.
Just think of the amount of Snapchats of sad Ohio State fans I will be able to send out if Notre Dame wins this game.
God, I just for that reason, I hope Notre Dame wins. No football reasons involved, just wanting to see Ohio State, sad Ohio State fans.
It would be tremendous. And I do plan on putting money on this game because I will be heading to Vegas. I'm flying into Vegas and then driving to Glendale for the game. So I will be wagering on this game legally, of course.
I know Notre Dame opened as, I think, 6-point dogs, 6.5-point dogs. I think that might have gone down a point or two. I can't really remember, but
I'll probably end up betting them money line.
Yeah.
Because I think they'll win outright.
Yeah. All right. So anything else you want to touch on real quick before we wrap up today?
Not that I can think of. I'm very excited for this game, obviously. I can't wait to hopefully see a Notre Dame victory in person for the second time this year. I think that'd be tremendous.
Yeah.
And the spread on this game is currently at anywhere between -5 to -6.5. Oh, actually -7 at one place. Ooh. And so, yeah, I'm probably going to be putting some money down on the Golden Domers.
All right. Well, enjoy yourself. It's a 1:00 game, January 1st. So obviously in the West Coast, you're going to be out there at 10 a.m.
Game is at 11 a.m. local time.
Okay. Arizona's not quite California. So yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I didn't really realize that until just now, but
yeah, they don't believe in daylight savings time in Arizona.
Yeah, we'll have to talk to Mike Wilson about that. But all right. So Danny, tell the listeners where they can find you.
Shoot me a follow on Twitter at dcunninghamcle. Obviously, I tweet out all my links for all the tremendous work I do on Campus Pressbox, so you can follow me there. And if, hey, you happen to be a Cleveland Indians fan, you can read what I write about them on burningriverbaseball.com.
And I'm Ben Belden. You can follow me on Twitter at bbeldencle. Just brought that Twitter back after a little hiatus, so I'm happy about that. You can find the links for my work on Campus Pressbox, and I obviously tweet those out also. And also just recently, if you happen to be a Cleveland sports fan of any kind, I just accepted a position writing for Factory of Sadness in the Fan-Sided Network. So you can find some of my Cleveland writing over there as well. I'm excited about that and raring to get going. So thanks again for listening to our Notre Dame podcast. Hopefully we can get one more in after a big victory against Ohio State. Until then, this is Ben Belden and Danny Cunningham signing off.